Hello and welcome to the Brit Irons Week 15 preview episode. I'm your host James, and as ever, I'm joined by Sam and Matt.
Evening.
Now, before we get into it, we should give a quick shout out to the UKTouchdown.com. It's a great source of signed college and NFL memorabilia in the UK. Everything is 100% verified. So it's all legit. So you know exactly what you're getting for your money. So be sure to head over to the UKTouchdown.com. Right, boys, big week of football here. Make or break for some teams.
First week of the playoffs, in my opinion. That's why I'm saying
excited.
For some teams, it is the first week of the playoffs.
It's the unofficial playoffs, if you like. Let's kick it off, though, with a Thursday night football game that sees the Chargers going to face the Raiders. Now, the Raiders have just fired their defensive coordinator, which is, is what it is.
Been coming, I think.
Yeah.
The last few weeks.
Poor defense.
What impacts do you reckon that will have on the team going into this game?
I think it's tricky because firing. I mean, they're playing on a short week, and you fire your defensive coordinator on a short week, and arguably for me, this is not necessarily all on the defensive coordinator. There are some personnel issues there. They've not got the most talented defense in the world, and the thing is, they have had games where they've looked okay on defense. I don't necessarily understand the thinking at this point in a season of firing your defensive coordinator. Like, you've probably not got the person who's going to step in and be the next guy there. I mean, unless you are that confident that you are. But the personnel's not changing, and you're firing the guy on a short week. They're not going to completely change the scheme at this point. They're still in that kind of verging around the playoff hunt. Say they battle through a couple of weeks, and this Chargers is a relatively easy matchup for them. I think they should come out of it with the victory. I think this could potentially hurt them if they manage to fight their way into the playoffs.
Oh, definitely. I think any time you're in a playoff hunt, like, I can't really, off the top of my head, I mean, there might be mercy, but you don't really see it happening. You don't really think of a team in a playoff hunt sacking a coordinator. Like, you might get it on a positional coach or some smaller nuance of the team, but the DC, like, that's big.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, it's a weird choice for me. I feel like it's one of those ones maybe you'll hear more after the season about the specifics of why and what led to them having to do it now, and not saying we've kind of had him for 14 weeks and then get rid of him now instead of just keeping him for the full 17, maybe more if they get playoffs. But yeah, it's an interesting game now, this, because the Chargers, obviously it's in division, but the Chargers just playing for pride, and good win against Atlanta, who looked decent since changing the coaches around. Looked better, obviously couldn't really look worse than how they started.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
A good win for them in a team that's sort of similar level to them, and finally kind of getting that edge and getting over the hump in terms of not just losing by a score and getting the right side of the coin flip, I guess. So it's an uncertain one for me. Yeah. It's especially, I think it's just so many factors to it.
Yeah.
It's the Chargers just playing up and saying, right, we're just going to come out and be difficult, and we've kind of got over that week of being told we're not playing for anything by a head coach. So now we're almost, maybe they've taken that as a bit of a mentality of, all right, we're just going to upset everyone that is. And then Raiders, on the other hand, what's going on? What's their defense going to be against Herbert, who has on his day looked good enough to potentially take advantage of something like that?
Yeah, bottom 10 defense, I think, statistically as well. So, I mean, the fire makes sense, but it's an opportunity, right, for Herbert to fire on all cylinders.
I was going to say, I think this is a game I don't necessarily want to call, but I do love the over in this game.
I was about to say
this
that.
is a Chargers defense that has been leaky all year, going up against a Raiders defense that, as you say, has been bottom 10, has just lost its defensive coordinator and is on a short week. That just screams points to me. And on the flip side, the Raiders offense, I mean, Derek Carr is having a good year. They've got some weapons. I mean, Henry Ruggs, I'm getting ahead of myself there. We're going Rager. But Henry Ruggs is just such a big play guy that against a weaker Chargers D, this screams a lot of points.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing how Josh Jacobs does in this game, if he's 100% healthy. Chargers run defense pretty poor, giving 120 rushing yards per game and averaging about 4.92 yards per carry for running back. So potential. It'll
be interesting to see. I feel like this could turn into a throwing fest. Yeah. Just because, I mean, especially if the Raiders get up early and the Chargers are forced to throw, and then the Raiders aren't. I mean, the Raiders, they probably don't want to put too much. If they're ahead 2 scores, I wouldn't, as a Raiders head, as John Gruden and that offensive coordinator there, I would not be wanting to give Jacobs the ball too much unless I had to. Like
Yeah.
he is one of the stars on that team. And when you're coming into the playoffs, if you're at a point in this game that you think, right, this is locked up, I'm going to just reduce the amount of tread on him as possible because I want him fresh for the playoffs. So I'm more expecting this to be a throwing fest. And if they get ahead, to actually kind of lean away from Jacobs and get the other backs involved.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think especially if they are up, it looks like they're getting the win in that time. They're going to be sort of thinking onto the next couple of weeks and making sure they get that wildcard spot. You're then going to be thinking, if we do get there, we want Jacobs healthy then.
Protect him, yeah.
So I think it's that weird balance of sort of playing to the game script versus playing sort of the script of their season. So I think I would go on the side of the Raiders. Like if I'm putting money in, I mean, I could see this being an absolute shootout. And I reckon that it might come down to sort of a touchdown difference. Or I think that -3.5 on the Raiders, for me, that's low enough to take.
Yeah.
I think 100%. If it was anything above 5 or 5 and above, that I wouldn't like, because I could see the Chargers hanging around within that. But I think that's a good region for me. So I think I'd happily put this in a bet this week on the Raiders.
I think I'd agree there as well for that one, definitely. But let's move on to Saturday night, actually. The Bills going to play the Broncos. We've got a 9:30 kickoff over here in the UK, which is the first Saturday kickoff of the season, I believe it is.
I didn't notice that. That's a nice little surprise.
I cannot wait.
For curveballs in there.
Football all weekend.
You'd love to see it, right?
A bit the old Christmas party, one eye on the football.
Meanwhile, I'll be dying from my Christmas party on Friday night.
Oh, love Christmas.
Yeah.
I'll just be laughing.
'Tis the season to be smashed.
But let's talk about the Bills, because they had a mighty win last week against the Steelers. Now we'll come on to the Steelers later on, so let's not touch too much on them.
Yep.
But can the Bills keep it rolling here against the Broncos?
Oh, they should. They seem like they're hitting their playoff form. I think they started hot. They kind of obviously had a few injuries on defense. Josh Allen had a little bit of a wobble, dropped off, and now I think seems like maybe having the Dolphins there pushing them has sort of straightened this team up, and they thought, hang on, this isn't a lock. Because I think after there was a run towards the start of the season, we're like, well, they've won the division already. So week 4-5, you're saying, well, that's done. Lock it up for them. So I think Dolphins gave them a little bit of a kick up the arse, and now they're firing all cylinders again at the right time. We said this is when you want to be hitting your form. And I think you'd have to be a bit of an idiot to bet against them going into this, because it's a Broncos team, again, not really a lot to play for. Well, nothing to play for, essentially, apart from maybe a little bit of pride. Beat a Panthers team that is, we'll talk about them later, but just a bit hit and miss, hot and cold, nothing much there. So I think, but keep rolling with the Bills.
Yeah, I completely agree with Matt. I think this is one that I'm probably taking the Bills on the spread. Also liking the look of that over again in this game. Drew Lock's coming off a massive week, and he is a big gunslinger. And without having that much pressure on him, I think he can kind of just go out there, throw the rock. So I think they will put up. I mean, this is an employed points total of like 18.5 for the Broncos, which I think is more than coverable for the Broncos. I think the Bills will cover as well. I don't think there's too much to be said on this game, just because the Bills are clearly the better side. Liking the over, though.
Yeah, over being 50, of course, which is... Yeah, it's very tempting. And the spread as well, -6.5.
I think I'm taking both.
I like that -6.5, although I am nervous because, again, this is a game that we're getting to that end of the season where, especially with a team like the Bills, I think if this game is won for them with 10 minutes or let's say 4 minutes to play and they're up 10, I could very easily see a garbage time touchdown. And I mean, almost like that Kansas City-Miami game where at one point when Kansas City were up 30-10, the game felt pretty much over. Yeah. But then there's a couple of scores where one team switches off and the score doesn't reflect the game itself. So I think there is the chance for this, because I do think the Broncos will score quite a lot of points.
They have the potential to. One thing to look out for, of course, is Drew Lock's interceptions as well. Bills' secondary has done quite well at snagging interceptions this season. And on the contrary, Drew Lock's been pretty bad.
Might be cheeky little prop bet.
I think so, yeah. So I think that is a good prop bet, actually. I might be looking to take that one this week.
I expect you to.
God, expectations there. I'll put it on now, shall I? I don't know what odds you get on that. Probably not amazing, to be fair.
Yeah,
but,
I feel like Vegas would have seen. They'll have seen those stats long before us and set that over.
It's pretty much a given at this point, I think. But interesting line to take, perhaps. But let's move it on. And Matt, you mentioned the Panthers a second ago. Let's talk about them now, because they are the next game on the slate. 1:15 in the morning, or Saturday evening, if you like. They're going to play the Packers. Can the Panthers put up any fight here? The spread's at minus 8.5 in favour of the Packers. Should be Packers, right?
It's a young Panthers defense that has had its days. There's been a couple games this year we thought they've got the pieces, but they are just young. New young head coach as well, so that's going to take some time. And when you're coming up against Aaron Rodgers and this Packers offense, the way it's played majority of this season, you can't afford to be inexperienced because you hear him talk, or like Tuesday's Pat McAfee, the way he breaks everything down, the tiniest little mistake from one of those rookies, or where they're not quite in sync or anything like that, he's going to exploit that and they're probably going to burn you for a touchdown.
Yeah.
So I think it just purely based on that Packers offense against this Panthers defense, lock up the Packers for this one.
It's the thing I love this season is Davante Adams was really. I mean, everyone knew that he was really good. I think this season he, along with, it's helped that Aaron Rodgers is probably distancing himself at the top now to be the MVP. I think, in my opinion, he would be my bet for the MVP at this point. Yeah. Obviously, still 3 games to play, and Mahomes is still very much in that conversation. But the fact that Davante Adams has kind of put himself up there for me with the DeAndre Hopkins discussion as I think they're the 2 premier receivers in the league at the moment. They're the 2 guys I would say, and 1 and 2 is being quite impressive when you consider there is not really anybody else on that team. He doesn't have like a solid number 2, and you've just got a lot of just guys that have come out, like Robert Tunyon's just come out of nowhere and had a really productive season, and you've got Alan Lazard and all these other guys that are just kind of getting bits and bobs done, but there's no one that you would go, they're a good number 2 in this league. So I think what Davante Adams has done this season has been really impressive.
Yeah,
100%.
Burnt me on fantasy football as well this year as well.
I
played him twice against him twice, so I'd rather not talk about him any much more since all he plagued me. But we mentioned the Panthers being slightly out of it this season. I think they can't make playoffs at this point, right?
No, they're 4-9.
So no chance.
No one's getting
competitive NFC.
Unless you're in the NFC East.
So what do they do with CMC now? Sit him out for the rest of the year, even if he's healthy?
I think there's a shout for that, yeah. Why put the wear on his body?
Especially when he's already banged up.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's not like, obviously they still want to be competitive. I feel like no team in the league really wants to look dreadful, but Mike Davis is doing enough of a job. Just keep putting him out there, keep seeing what he does. Worst case, or not worst case, but one case, you've got great backups out there.
Yeah.
Potential other case, teams could come knocking. You might be able to get something for him to help rebuild more in that defense as well.
And you just can't. You can't risk losing your franchise player, which is what McCaffrey is. When you've not gone out and ponied up big money for a big name quarterback, and you've not gone out and made moves in the draft to get your franchise quarterback, what they've got in Teddy Bridgewater is a game manager guy. He's not going to be the face of the franchise. He'll be the good kind of steady in the background. But McCaffrey is the face of that franchise at the moment, and you can't risk losing him for another season.
There's no point, is there? No point at all.
So I think this offense has shown good things at times. The right off season, and they're edging towards a wild card debate next season for me if they mature quick enough. Yeah. But within the next 2 years, I think they should be in that conversation. If they trend the right way,
really like their receiver core as well.
Yes. Oh yeah,
very.
Robbie Anderson might have been one of the steals of last off season for them.
It was a bit under when it happened. There wasn't, I think, as much appreciation of it, and there was sort of other moves that went ahead of it. And I think now, potentially.
Yeah. Brilliant move, Brilliant move for him as well.
Yeah. Get out from under the Jets.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Out of the Jets is never a bad move.
Exactly.
Let's move on to Sunday's games. We'll start with a 6 p.m. kickoff. Sees the Patriots going to Miami to play the Dolphins. The Dolphins ran it very close last week against the Chiefs, just losing at the end of the game there. Can they build on this and beat the Patriots? The spread is very small at -2, though, in favour of the Dolphins.
I think at this point, we all know the Patriots are... the Patriots still technically in it. They pretty much need to win out now.
Yeah.
I think everyone knows that realistically the Dolphins at this point are the better team. And I think the Dolphins make the playoffs this year. They probably won't win their division, I don't think, at this point. I think that drop game is going to hurt them. But they will make the playoffs. My issue with them is effectively, it's the same issue that I've got with pretty much any team in the AFC right now. When I look at them, do I think that they can beat the Kansas City Chiefs? And the answer is no. And that's having seen them play that first quarter against Kansas. They played lights out.
Yeah. Half the team did.
Yeah. The defense is good enough to beat anyone in the league. That is one of the premier defensive units in the league. You've got Xavier Howard, who's got more interceptions than something silly like 12 NFL teams this year.
Outrageous.
He's got 9 interceptions on a year, which is outrageous. But their offense can't move the ball. And when you look at the way they played against Kansas, I mean, Patrick Mahomes threw 3 interceptions against his defense. How often does Mahomes do something like that?
Yeah.
But the offense can't score points. And when you think that at one point in the third quarter, Kansas City were up 30-10 in a game where Miami's had 3 turnovers, that's not good enough. You're not a contender in that stage. So yes, I think they win this game because they're a much better team than New England. But we're getting to the point of the season now where you've got to start these teams that are contenders and are in that playoff hunt. Mm-hmm. We're going, right, are they actually contenders or are they just one of the best 7 teams in the conference? Mm-hmm. And I don't think Miami is a real contender because I can't see them scoring enough points to keep up with Kansas City. I don't think they can score enough points to keep up with Baltimore. I don't think they can score enough points to keep up with Cleveland.
Oh, you threw a curveball there at the end.
It's an interesting one for me. I think this game specifically, the Patriots love turning the ball over. And as Sam said, the Dolphins just love being on the other end of those turnovers. So I think this could be a slightly embarrassing one to have a change in the guard feel again. So we've had it with Bills Patriots, but the same here with Dolphins Patriots, that they sort of snuff out the hopes of this Patriots team. And I think they'll probably feel quite good doing that because there's been a few seasons where it's been the other way around in recent memory. So I think you're going to have a very motivated Dolphins here. I think, the Chiefs, when it comes to playoffs, I can't see them keeping up with. One team that will be interesting potentially is Steelers. I think if you put defense on defense, like just a defensive football matchup, obviously I think the Steelers' defense may be slightly better, but I think I trust this Dolphins team to potentially be able to get it done just because the Steelers team with that running game problem. I think in the playoffs, I think the Dolphins could be a team that could come out there and knock out the Steelers.
Don't get me wrong. I think the Dolphins are a team that could win a playoff game.
Oh,
I think they can win a playoff game. I think what I'm saying is more like, right, who are the teams that are going to be in the conversation for the AFC Championship game? Yeah. And if they get there, who can this team beat? And obviously there probably is a road in which you can get through that they can avoid Kansas City with Kansas City dropping a silly game or something like that. But I think in a big game moment, any team that will score a lot of points against them, they can't beat.
And I think you got Bills and Chiefs, Ravens who still
Ravens put up points.
And they look like they went back to their old selves a little bit. Heavy running game. We'll get to that, but. Yeah, this Dolphins team, it's good though for them. We were saying at the start of the year, this is the year where they're sort of like build a little bit, get a bit of cohesiveness, have one more off season, and then go for it, and they'll be playoff contenders next year.
They've done it.
They're a year ahead of schedule, so all they need is a bit of fire on that offense. Over the off season, and suddenly we're like, well, hello.
Be exciting next year for them.
And as well that division, them and the Bills, potentially by then the Patriots, sort of getting things figured out, or we're going through full rebuild. Who knows? It could be 2 contenders and 2 nothing teams. Could be 3 contenders. You can never count out the Patriots. I think that's going to be a great thing to watch over the offseason, I think, for me.
Great division that could shape up to be.
Essentially,
exciting times, definitely. Right, let's. You mentioned the Ravens there, Matt. Again, let's move on to
this.
Yeah, let's move on to the Ravens. Jaguars going to Baltimore this week. Gardner Minshew rumoured to be starting the game, which is interesting. Doesn't really matter though, right? For the Jags, I mean they're 1-12.
Oh no.
Season's over, not worth talking about them.
Yeah, season's done. Ravens look like they found a bit more of their form in that win against the Browns. I mean, great game of football. Yeah. Great, brilliantly played from them. Just played to their strength. Said, right, we're just going to run the ball. And I mean, got the job done. Lamar Jackson looked like Lamar Jackson of old. So they said, right, we're just not going to make him throw it. And it worked out. And when he did throw it, it was relatively effective. Some nice throws into Andrews and Hollywood Brown did what they need to do. Yeah. Whereas Jags, nothing. I think Minshew, when he's healthy, he is the best quarterback there. He is going to play. Makes sense. What will happen with that going through the off-season? Who knows? I think we're going to have plenty of months to figure that out and kind of analyse all of that. In terms of this game, the Ravens are winning. At -13, it feels like they should. And I feel like it's weird for it being over 10, it feels relatively safe. But any time it's over 10, it's a worrying one to place. I think you can on this one.
Yeah, this is safe.
Like, I won't have full trust in it because there is always a bit of Minshew mania, a bit of something in garbage time. Just Ravens pull a few stars. Something happened. And the way if they do just heavily run the ball, they can put up a ton of points. But if they're not forced to as much, if they're just more running the clock than running to score like they had to against Cleveland, do they clear as many? So there's a few things that make me worried. But I think I'll be placing it just because this is a Ravens team. I think there's a psychological edge to it. They want to come into playoffs saying, you need to be worried about our offense.
Yeah.
Like, I think they'll want to get that out of their building. They want to be coming into playoffs feeling good. And I think a way of doing that is put up 40 points in every game between now and then.
And they can do it. I put it in the locker.
It's a team that definitely can.
I get that. I just don't like spreads this high. I mean, as soon as you're pushing spreads this high, you've got garbage time touchdowns really become, because you could be covering by 20 points and then they take off. Everyone's off the field. None of your starters are out there, and there's a garbage time touchdown, and suddenly they only cover by 13 and you narrowly miss out, or they only cover by 12 and you narrowly miss out. Like, these things are not unheard of. And I mean, I didn't take the over under the spread with the Seahawks game against the Jets, even though the Seahawks went out and covered it quite comfortably. I'm not taking that, because that's something that you can't guarantee that's going to happen. You can probably guarantee the win and the money line. The second you got spreads that high, that's all sorts of things can affect it. So it's not worth betting on, I don't think. I mean, in terms of this game, the Ravens, they're an interesting team for me at the moment, just because they came out against the Browns and they looked really good. But, I mean, there were still points where it wasn't working for them, the run game. And the Browns stuffed them relatively well. I mean, Lamar had a couple of really great drives, and there were a couple of also drives that were just not that great. Yeah. And I worry with the Ravens that maybe against a team that they don't know as well as the Browns, because I think the AFC North is one of these, any in-division games, so the Steelers, I'm confident that when the Steelers and the Ravens play in a couple of weeks, that the Steelers can beat the Ravens. I think the Steelers can beat the Ravens, not because I think the Steelers are a better team, but because they know how they play against them so often, and it is one of these weird things you can just, for a game, it can happen. So I think I really need to see the Ravens win out for the rest of the year for them to be real contenders. And I actually think that the Browns are a better football team than the Ravens at this point. I don't necessarily read into that one game too much.
I think the argument for me on that is when you run the ball and do sort of as much of it as they did and make it so obvious that we are just going to run this ball at you, you're going to get stopped at points. The score would have been ridiculous. Like, if the Browns didn't get any stops and didn't put up anything against the run game. And that D-line, that interior of that defense is not an easy one to run the ball on traditionally, and especially relatively well this year. So I think, and the point about them and the Ravens and Steelers, that's two teams with very obvious ways to beat them. Yeah. One isn't great passing the ball, one's not great running the ball against both with good defenses.
Yeah. So I get that. I think my issue with the Ravens this year is that win against the Browns felt to me like that was a win because Lamar Jackson pulled out some magic, right?
I mean, Baker was...
Baker
played
great.
very well.
Baker played really well.
Good day.
But the thing is, I think that the Browns have consistently I don't even think they have. The Browns have consistently put up points all year. The Ravens haven't. The Ravens had a game where there were a couple of huge plays from Lamar Jackson, which we've not seen all year. And I'm not willing, after one game, to come out and go, right, Lamar Jackson's back to this pulling out a mad play every week. I think that he pulled out a couple of big plays. It's at a crucial moment. Crucial moments in the fourth quarter of that game, which won them the game, and he's got it in his locker, but we've not seen it consistently enough, in my opinion, to go out and say, right, the Ravens are back and they're going to be putting up 40 every week.
I mean, I'm sure we'll have time, I reckon this debate is going to be one for that sort of playoff previews, but the Browns have had a lot of games where they have not put up points either. They have not been incredible all year, so I don't know.
And they've stuck to their game plan.
Let's move it on, because we're going to debate this, I feel
I'm feeling a bit of slander against my Ravens as well, so I'm getting, I'll fight you in the car park, Sam, after this. But back
I know I'm taking the odds on that one.
Do we have a car park?
There's a road, there's a bit of grass out the back. But back to this game, this spread, lock it up. Don't know why you wouldn't.
Lock it up.
I do like it at minus.
Minus 13.
It's uncomfortable. Yeah.
But what are the Ravens good at?
Scoring points.
Apart from scoring points. How do they score? This is like going back to school here.
Yeah.
Running the ball. They run the ball very well. What are the Jags bad at defending against?
The run.
The run.
Running the ball?
Third worst in the league. 145 yards allowed per game.
Brutal.
So I do see the point about Minshew, maybe a bit of Minshew mania at some points, but I think they're just going to run the ball all day and
knowing that stat, I'm happy now. I don't feel too nervous.
Take the Ravens, I think.
Happily take.
I like the over on this as well. 46 points.
Yeah.
The
So
Ravens could do that on their own.
Yeah, I think the Ravens
Genuinely.
The Ravens could do it on their own, but also I do think the Jags with Minshew have the ability to score 2 touchdowns, which suddenly brings that to a 32 point total for the Ravens, which is very doable.
They've almost consistently done that last couple with Lamar since he came in.
Only issue for the Ravens, actually, which I didn't notice earlier,
Here
is
we go.
Trace McSorley being moved down. They've now had to bring up their backup. He's like a rookie who's been on the practice squad.
Yeah.
So, I mean, should anything happen to Lamar, which fingers crossed doesn't, touch wood and all that, they have a very dodgy quarterback backup
Trace
situation.
McSorley's not exactly a phenomenal backup anyway.
But he can throw it on a dime. So, and he did that on
he did
last game, yeah.
Yeah, true.
Last 17-yard game for Torrey Sneed. So.
I think regardless if Lamar goes down,
They still run the ball.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they're still going to try and just run the ball. But I
it's
mean,
a good point. I think
there's not going to be anyone. I don't think there really is anyone that can fill in and do what he does.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter who their backup is unless they're going to someone that can essentially flip the whole offense and start really passing it. I think that for me doesn't really affect them in their season because if Trace McSorley becomes the starter, it doesn't matter if they win or whatever happens. They're not going to win in the playoffs. Yeah, and they're probably not going to win enough to.
I think my point is more like if you go from Trace McSorley, who's already spent most of the season taking up third string reps, and then you go to a guy who was undrafted at college rookie last year and has not really been taking any reps because he's been on the practice squad.
It's a risk.
You're
season's done
worse.
either way for me. Like, let's be honest.
Cool.
That if Lamar went down.
Oh, if Lamar went down.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Chances are.
Where they're at now, who knows? Maybe they're going to get hot at the right time.
Well, you never know.
Big in division win against the Browns. That does a lot for a team.
Yeah, and now they're on the verge of flipping it in the division
and
to get the second spot. Yeah, another game in it.
Games just put up a load of points and keep the confidence high. That's what you need.
Yeah, good day to do it. But let's move on. We spoke about that game a little bit now. Let's talk about the Texans going in to play the Colts. Another in division matchup, but I mean, Texan season's pretty much over.
I mean, receivers
I think the next 2 years for this Texans team.
Draft picks.
Nothing left.
Yeah,
they've just got Deshaun Watson, just kind of, and JJ Watt looking around, just like
trying.
What? What's happened here then?
Yeah.
Like, there's just no one left. There's no picks left. Like,
and on the flip side of that, you're going up a very good Colts team. A very well coached team, a Colts team with a really good defense. Which I mean, against this Colts defense, the Texans have struggled to run the ball really all year. I mean, David Johnson hasn't been able to stay on the field. When he has been on the field, he's actually not been terrible to the eye.
Good in the red zone.
He's very good in the red zone. It's just he can't stay on the field. They have no pass catchers left. I mean, who are they throwing to at this point?
QT. Maybe Cooks, but we've seen it before with him. Once he gets one injury on a season, it's normally kind of David Johnson-esque.
There is no one. There is no one reliable there, and this does just feel like a team that's entire offensive strategy is basically snap the ball to Deshaun Watson, and because he is so good, hope that he can do something. But
100%,
you've got to feel sorry for him. Okay, well. Sorry as you can feel for someone earning $39 million a year.
I was going to say.
As a player.
But from a player's perspective, you've got to feel sorry for him just being put in that situation. But I think we're all going to be quite comfortable in saying that Colts win this game. I'm happy taking them on the spread quite comfortably. And probably happy taking the over here as well.
Yeah.
Very high over at 52.5.
I don't know about the over.
But I think the Colts could put up 35.
I think they'll put up points, but I could just see this being a little bit for the Colts. If they've got obviously a load of good running backs there, do what they need to do, get up early, defense gets a couple stops, and then just grind it out and not really have to run the score up at all. I think they just do what they got to do, burn the clock down, try and avoid injuries where they don't need them. Well, you don't need them anyway, but you know what I mean. Try and avoid any injuries at this point in the season and just kind of move on with the win. So I'm hesitant on that over, but I think the spread, -7, I'll happily take.
It's tasty, And look for a big day for Jonathan Taylor as well.
Yeah.
Who's
they're finally, it feels as well like they're finally working. Like the start of the season, even with Mac going out, it felt like they were hesitant to give him the ball. Yeah. Naeem Hines was getting stuff, and now I think they've found the sweet spot now with Naeem Hines. Obviously, still getting a lot of work and being the receiving guy, but Taylor, when he gets given those carries, he really is a monster in the backfield and behind maybe the best O-line in the league. That's a scary thought for years to come.
And a very bad Houston rush defense as well, allowing 152.3 rush yards per game.
T.Y. Hilton started to show up a little bit again. Maybe him and Rivers have finally figured out whatever was going on for the first sort of 50, well, not 50, but sort of like 10, 11 weeks, and now he's looking good, which is great for them. Bazal Taylor, he started getting some receiving reps as well.
God,
So I think that's the big thing is now you're starting with Jonathan Taylor. If you, it kind of was a thing of you knew what was coming. If you saw him or Hines, you know. Whereas now he's starting to get some receiving work.
Much harder to defend when they could be doing anything.
Exactly. And
top tips.
Yeah.
Top punditry right here.
From Sam.
They could be doing anything.
That was,
so be careful.
that was the most Michael Owen thing I've
That
ever
was
seen
very
in my
Michael
life.
Owen.
Rumours sound
you know what they say?
DC job
To win the game, you've got to score more points than the other team.
Cool. I did not think about that
Yeah.
before this moment, so I'm glad you mentioned it.
What's
but,
next? What more information shall I drop on you all?
We're waiting. Put it on the spot if you want, or we just keep it moving.
I don't know.
That was a
Oh,
pure.
God.
That little look back was a bit of don't do this. to me.
Why have you done this?
I was going to leave
me?
silence, but
Why
I
have you
thought-
done this to me?
The listeners
Post
don't want
privilege
that,
there,
yeah.
just getting to do that. Just
Yeah,
make me feel like.
it's you over, innit, you know. We'll do it sometimes, but that's a good way to move on to the next game, I think, for your own sake, I think,
Yeah.
Sam. Let's talk about the Lions going into play the Titans also at 6 p.m. I mean, the Lion season over, you reckon?
Will they have
100%?
Stafford? Their centre by the sounds of it.
Yes,
What's
centre.
it, fractured throat?
Fractured throat, which I have no idea.
Sounds horrendous.
How it
Imagine how
happens.
painful that must be.
Oh, I didn't realise there was
I swallowed a
bone in
whole.
there.
I swallowed a whole minstrel once, and that really hurt. So I can't imagine.
So you
what-
know what he's going
So
through.
I
then.
can only imagine the pain of
I
fracturing
feel
your
you, brother.
throat. So to the Lions Centre out there, I know your pain.
It's a tough one. I mean,
It's a tricky one.
Yeah, Lions are done for the year.
100%.
Nothing really to look at on that front. And I mean, Titans team that are inconsistent. I mean, their ceiling is one that can contend in the playoffs. Their floor is one that will fall short. It's just which version turn up. But I think for me here, either version, they're going to get the win.
Yeah. Bad
So,
defense. Bad
yeah.
Detroit defense.
Yeah, like
And
Not getting
Derrick
them.
Henry's probably just going to have another one of his Derrick Henry games.
The
Yeah.
Titans have got flaws going forward. They're going to really struggle against teams that have quarterbacks who are good because they don't pressure the quarterback.
Most teams in the playoffs, you'd imagine.
Yeah. Yeah,
You'd think.
Like they don't pressure the quarterback like at all. Their pass rush is really
It
poor,
was weak.
which is a real issue for them. Obviously, their run game is amazing. Derrick Henry is a beast.
AJ
And
Brown is a
That
beast. as well.
and AJ Brown is a beast.
What a
So
catch
I
that was.
actually quite like them offensively more than I thought I was going to at the start of the year. I think they are more varied than I gave them credit for. However, and this is not where I thought I'd be this at this point in the season, but the defense is an issue. I don't think they're good enough offensively to keep up with the other offensive powerhouses around the league, which at some point will bite them in the behind because if they get into a game with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, we've already seen games where you can shut down Mahomes for a quarter and you can make him throw 3 interceptions, still going to score 30 points. And if you can't do that, then you're going to struggle. So if you can't put pressure on him, I'm worried.
My big thing for them in the playoffs is we've seen it a few times that they're a team that unless you literally bury them, like they're going to come back at you. And they've had a few that were close, like the Steelers they should have beat, but they missed the field goal. And that's sort of ones that they put themselves in the position. And as much as you got someone like Mahomes in playoffs, Derrick Henry in the playoffs, he's great all the regular season. We've seen games in the playoffs where it just looks like, I don't know, everyone else is a little bit slowed down and he's just an animal in those games.
That's telling me twice.
But I think there's enough in this team, and I've said it a few times now, that when the lights are bright in those playoff games, if you've got a lead and it starts slipping, all it takes is a couple of young guys in your defense to start having a little bit of nerves, a little bit of a panic.
Yeah.
A team like the Titans that have shown they will come back at you, and they're until that last whistle goes, they're in the game. I think that's when they're going to be at their best almost. Is when they get punched in the face in the first half and come out in the second half and say, all right.
I really back Vrabel for that as well. I think Vrabel
the right coach for that.
He may be the most important person on this team. I really think that because since he's come in and the culture he's implemented, they're not the most talented team in the league. They don't have a lot of positions. They don't have the best. They've got one of the best running backs and they've got some good receivers, but they're a gritty team. They fight hard, and their coach reflects that. He's a guy that when you've just scored a touchdown and you can go kick the extra point and go to overtime, or you can go for 2. He goes for 2 every time. He's a guy who's not afraid to go for it on fourth down. I think that culture really spills over into the team. and it's probably why they do fight back so well after half-time.
I think so. Imagine Vrabel, like, as aggressive as he is with his play calls. Imagine that, like, team talk. If you go in and you're behind, and he knows his team's not playing well, he's the kind of coaching that can get a team wanting to just run through a wall for him.
Yeah.
And when you've got Derrick Henry, I feel like he
will
must do
run
that.
through
he can run
quite
through
literally
walls.
could.
Yeah.
Like,
Definitely, yeah.
it's a great combination.
It's a big spread for this game. I don't know if we mentioned it yet. Minus 10.5 in favour of the Titans.
Do not like that.
That is a risky one for me.
Titans
It's
have,
risky,
Titans have
but-
felt like they've been a bit dodgy against the spread this year. I've backed them
Yeah.
on the spread a number of times and been let down.
Money
so
line the
I'm
Titans.
staying away from
avoid
that
the
spread.
Yeah, a little bit too high. I think you boys
Yeah.
are right on
I
that
think
one.
especially at this point as well, this point in the week, if Stafford isn't playing, then if you can grab it around this, I maybe like it a bit more. But if Stafford is playing, we've seen before, he is the master of anything in garbage time. So I would not be shocked if they are 10, 12, something like that, points up, and then there's a touchdown right at the end from the Lions. So I think, I'm avoiding that, but money line in the Titans all day.
Good shout. Brilliant shout, I think. But let's shift things on once more. Let's talk about your Buccaneers, Matt.
Yeah.
In division game against the Falcons. Good chance for the Bucs to push on in the playoffs.
Yeah,
Playoff hunt, I
definitely.
think.
I think-
You reckon they can do it this game? Win the game?
Oh, yeah, I think we should. I think
Yeah.
getting over that game against the Vikings was a big game for us. Coming off the bye, needing to get right against what I think isn't one of the easier teams in the league. Anyone with players like Dalvin Cook, Kirk Cousins, we spoke about it last week, they are a threat. I mean, let off a little bit by Nightmare Dave, that Vikings kicker. His name's
Dan Bailey.
Dan Bailey. But I mean,
Dan Bailey.
we covered the amount of points he left on the field. We covered anyway, but I think that could have really changed the game, changed the script around. But I mean, hey, the coaches do what they need to do to get us the win at the end of the day. So I mean, we got through that, and this is a Falcons team coming off a loss to the Chargers. I think if they'd have beaten the Chargers, I'd be a little bit more concerned because they would be on a little bit of a run, and there's a route to them getting to a more respectable sort of result at the end of this season in terms of how they look, and saying, all right, next season we come back, get above 500, be in that playoff debate. But I think losing to the Chargers, there's going to be a real, I think, feeling of season's done sort of thing. I mean, at this point, it's just kind of them and the Panthers playing for pride of who's not going to be last. But I think that's not enough to contend with the Bucs trying to lock up their first playoffs spot in a while.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think there is actually, it's great. I saw a tweet come out and it was all the different playoff stipulations of who can secure what this week. I think it's the Bears Viking game. If that somehow was a draw and the Bucs win, we're in the playoffs.
Could happen.
And I mean, that one's unlikely. I think over the next few weeks, all goes to plan, we should secure it. But it's just nice to see our name on that list.
Yeah, for once, yeah.
It's nice to be there.
It's good for the Bucs. It is good for the Bucs to finally break that playoff drought. This is a very nothing game for me, just because I think the rest of the year we are not going to learn anything new about this Buccaneers team now until the playoffs. They've got a really easy run in, and they should win out. If they don't win out, like I said, like we were saying on last week's episode, there's going to be some real concerns. When they make it to the playoffs and it's crunch time, that's when you're going to learn what this team is. And they're either Tom Brady and what he's done for the last 20 years and they will just pull it out the bag, or they'll crumble and they won't be able to move the ball offensively, and their big name stars who have struggled to produce this year in general won't be able to produce in the playoffs, and it will be a bit disappointing. So I don't think there's too much to say at the Bucs at this point, because for the next 3 weeks they're playing teams that aren't as good as them, don't have anything really to play for, and the Bucs should come out and win. So going forward, I'm saying I'm taking the Bucs in all 3 of their games for the rest of the year. Comfortable in that. I'm going to be really, really interested to see who they play wild card weekend and how well they do. Yeah. Because this is a team that, with everything on paper and from the way we've seen them play at points this year, they should be much better than they are right now.
Yeah.
And
I
want to see that come that first playoff game.
This is what I was saying before about maybe this run of games isn't going to help them. I'd quite like to see the Bucs play a decent team.
Yeah.
One decent team in the run into the postseason.
Yeah.
Just to get rid of that cloud above the head. And I know winning these easier games, good for morale, good to get it going, but just proving that you can do it, I think, will help a lot
playing
more.
Playing the Falcons is completely different to playing the Saints or to playing Green Bay or something.
Exactly.
And when you're at a spot where you do have so many issues, just going out and parading over a bunch of bad teams is not going to help you fix them.
That's my issue, yeah.
I think for me it's maybe, though, I can see the argument to that, but I think for me it's almost a case of the whole thing, I feel like, especially having an old quarterback, someone like Brady, is just get him to the playoffs, get him to January. And as we said, it's a whole new season then. I think you'll see different teams rise to it in different ways. So I think I'd almost hate this, and I don't think we win out. I think we secure the playoffs. I think week 17, a lot of those star names, Brady, Gronk, guys like that, they're going to be rested, I reckon, week 17. If we've secured it, why put them out there? Why risk an injury? Get them another week to recover.
There is a genuine,
and I think we lose potentially that week 17.
There might be a genuine spot then. Week 17, you're fighting with a couple of other teams over seeding. At which point, if you can avoid playing, because if I'm the Bucks, if there is a way to avoid having to play the Saints in New Orleans, I am taking any way out of that I possibly can.
Yeah.
Just because it's one of those games. I'd rather play. Well, actually, maybe not. But I don't really want to play Green Bay in Green Bay either. But I really don't want to play the Saints in Louisiana.
I'm a bit indifferent. I actually think that we're gonna, if we want to do anything, we're gonna have to beat them most likely at either of those two teams at some point. But I almost think potentially opening up that playoffs with game away with the Saints, and if you can get that win, that's a massive duck for them to break coming off the losing record this season.
Yeah.
And I would actually rather, I think, 'cause that's the kind of thing, if you beat a team like the Saints, there's such a belief running through the team of, right, we've gotten over that, who can stop us, sort of thing. So I'd almost say that I do see the point, and I think if it comes down to it, yeah, that will be the case. But I don't know, I kind of almost want that as one of our games. As much as I might come to regret that.
Yeah,
but I think we're going to have to beat
might.
them or the Packers at some point, and if we're going to win it all, we're going to have to beat Chiefs, Steelers, someone like
Anyone,
that.
yeah.
You can't get into the playoffs and say, oh, let's avoid the good teams. You're going to have to beat good teams if you want to win it all. Because I don't think the Bucks, no one there is just let's get to the playoffs and the season's a success. I mean, I think on the grand scheme of things, compared to the last few years, it is. But it's a whole different team almost. It's a new character that they're not playing to just make up the numbers in the playoffs. If they're being there, they want to be there to win it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, you know what, bring on the Saints. If we can beat them early doors, suddenly belief in the team, whole mindset changes.
Yeah, I think you're right. You've got to be able to beat anyone.
Yeah.
Got to be able to beat anyone in the playoffs, because if you're going to win it, it's got to happen. So
4 weeks of confidence and then beat the Saints. Heard it first.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, won't we?
Could still beat the Saints. And on the if we win out, and let's say the Saints lose out here, next thing you know, we're the top seed.
What a wild scenario that would be.
I mean, who knows if
what a wild scenario.
If it goes wrong with Drew Brees, if he can't get back in and play well, or if he gets back in and doesn't look good.
Well, has he still got all of his ribs broken?
He's still on the mend from that. I think they're still kind of he's trending the right way.
He's in the rounds, so it could
but
happen.
One big hit again. If they rush him back. Do they
wild
rush him
times
back?
being
They leave him out there. Who knows?
They're playing the Chiefs this week, which we'll come on to, but they're playing the Chiefs this week as well, so you never know. You never know. But let's shift things on. Let's talk about a very exciting game between the 49ers and the Cowboys, both with pretty bad losing records this year.
Feel for both these teams though. Like this should be two teams we're excited about at this point, and we're saying, how does this work in the playoffs? But for this season, yeah, we get it. For this season, it's just like
injuries.
Both played by injuries. Neither team is themselves. Bit of a nothing game. I mean, the Cowboys in theory are still playing for something. They could still do it, but it's going to take Giants and Washington really slipping up ahead of them for anything to happen there. So I think I'd lean saying the Cowboys win this. I feel like they're starting to find themselves a little bit, but still nothing special. It's not a game I'm particularly excited for, and I think we'll really pay much attention to in the grand scheme of things. It's just them flipping about who's drafting where.
It's the kind of game that you don't see a single snap from on Red Zone. It'll be like, oh, by the way, here's a touchdown. You don't when they get to the Red Zone, they don't go to it and be like, oh, this team's just gone to the Red Zone. We won't see any of this game. It's a boring game. The Niners are out. The Cowboys are most likely out. I mean, the fact they're at 4-9, and we can't say definitively that they're not going to make the playoffs. Obviously, there is a route to it.
Only 2 games off.
A lot of things would need to happen. I'm avoiding this betting wise just because I think I agree with you, Matt, that I think the Cowboys are getting better, and I want to say they win this game, but the 49ers are the kind of team that have been up and down, and when they've played at their best this year, even with all their injuries, they've looked like quite a good team.
Still good, yeah.
So I would not be surprised if the 49ers have a good showing against the Cowboys, so I'm just steering clear of all the bets here. I think there's so many range of outcomes that it's not worth risking it.
Yeah, why would you bet on a game you don't want to watch? Then
exactly.
Wasting your money. So yeah, I'm with you on that one as well. Let's move on then. Before we have to talk about that one anymore.
We really gave them a good show.
Yeah.
Niners and Cowboys fans would be like, oh, they get to us. And we're just both like,
1 minute gone. There you go.
Bored.
Right, let's speak about hopefully a less boring game, perhaps. In the Bears going into Minnesota to play the Vikings. Very short spread on this one at -3. Who are we taking?
oh, this is a difficult one.
Are we taking MVP, Mitch?
That was a big week last week.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to lock up MVP Mitch and say the Bears win this game.
You two have changed your tune a little bit. I remember last week I was the only one picking out the Bears against the
Yeah,
Texans of all teams.
Yeah.
You were both like rooting for the Texans in that one, putting your money there.
I'm not taking the Bears this week.
I'm locking them up. I think the Bears defense do a number.
Yep.
And I think the Bears offense does just enough, you know. Montgomery's hitting his stride.
He's looking good.
Montgomery's looking good. I think they'll lean on him. They've still got Allen Robinson, who is a very good receiver. I think Allen Robinson, there's a lot of teams he could go to, and we would be talking as Allen Robinson as one of the top kind of 10 talents in the league at the position. It's just he's on the Bears. Mitch Trubisky, don't get me wrong, he's still a terrible quarterback, but the Bears know that. They'll lean on the run game, and I think they win this, but it is so close. So I would not be taking any spreads or anything like that in this game.
Oh, I'm staying away from all
me
of
too.
that. I think it is an interesting one because obviously the Bears beat the Texans, whereas the Vikings lost to the Bucks. So they were last week were against teams at completely opposite ends of the football sort of spectrum. But I don't know. I've since the start of the season, there's just something about this Bears team that I think that defense once we can just be disruptive and difficult, and that offense isn't flashy. It's not impressive, but it can get it done when it needs to. All it needs sometimes. That's what I mean. Sometimes because we have seen a few when all they need is just average quarterback play and they're fine. Just this year, there's been a lot of below average. But when whoever it is that's been starting there, and more often not, it's been Trubisky that's shown it over Foles, just does what he needs to do. Just average, doesn't turn the ball over a lot, lets them lean on the defense, and let Montgomery be good enough. And at the moment, pretty damn good.
Montgomery's played some good football
At the end
this
of the year, he's closing the
very
season out well, and I think suddenly if the Bears string together 2 wins, keep themselves in that wild card race, it's massive what's at stake between these two teams
to make the playoffs.
Well,
who would you rather have, Vikings or Bears in the playoffs?
Bears.
I think the Vikings are a better team all around.
Dunno.
But
Bears deserve it more. They had a good start to the season. They had a really, really tough run of games.
Yeah.
I think overall, they deserve it more.
I want to see Trubisky get a chance to take this team in the playoffs as just a bit.
He's had a chance.
Yeah, he might win a long
like
time for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I just want to see. I don't know. Because I do. He's not always been the best quarterback, but I feel a bit bad for Trubisky at points. I don't know. I feel like them bringing in Foles, I just don't get it at all.
He just looks like a sad puppy sometimes when he's on the bench. You know what I mean?
think anyone in that situation, I think anyone would.
But he's not been in a bad situation. Like people make it like
No,
he has just been bad.
I don't know. I think you'd look quite miserable if you were Trubisky at points as well. To be honest, mate, it's easy to criticise sat on an armchair.
Granted, he's in an armchair though.
Alright,
Okay, a fold-out plastic. You're not even an armchair.
Well, we're getting off topic here. I think let's bring it back in. I'm staying away from this game as well. I just can't do it.
Won't bet on it. But...
Yeah, won't bet on it. Might watch it a little bit, but
hopefully a tie and the Bucks make the playoffs.
There you go. For your sake, let's pray for a tie. But
I'm praying for no tie.
All right.
Good for you then.
Bucks out.
Cheers for you.
Let's move on.
Bucks out.
Seahawks taking on the Washington football team this week. Seahawks -5 favourites on the spread. Quite low under-over at 44. Do you guys reckon that mean Washington defence has what it takes to shut down Russ?
I kind of like Washington on the spread. I think the Seahawks win the game, but I think a -5 seems very, very high for the Seahawks, who haven't been amazing offensively for the last 5 or 6 weeks, are going up against a very good defence. And the issue that Washington is going to have is there are potential worries that maybe Dwayne Haskins has to play.
Yeah,
that's the big
which
issue.
is the issue. Because I think he is probably not good enough to beat even that Seahawks defense, which has not been good all year.
Yeah.
But a spread of +5, I see this being a field goal game, a 3-pointer. So I'm taking Washington at +5 every day of the week on this one.
Yeah.
My prediction rests solely on Alex Smith. If he's out there, Washington win, I think. Because you've got Russ, who, I mean, he was going for most valuable player. Now it's just most varied player. We're seeing him.
I like that. Yeah.
And this is a Washington defense that is mean. And I think you're going to see a if Smith's out there and this game's going right and they're feeling competitive and this defense is properly fired up, like we could get the win here, I think you could see a pick or two, fumble or two from this Seahawks.
Chase Young is a terrifying human.
Yeah,
Scary,
exactly.
man.
I think he's got that Aaron Donald mold of just becoming that force.
Yeah.
Just whenever you go up against the Rams, you know what you're facing.
Yeah.
He's going to become the same, I think. And the way that Russell's looked, he's not looked secure with the ball at all. So I think there could be a couple moments, and if they do that, this Washington defense has shown they can score. So they just need Smith there to manage it and maybe get a few good drives, get the good field position, convert a few
Alex Smith.
touchdowns. Just be Alex Smith.
Yeah.
Defense will do the rest. So I think if Smith plays, I'm taking Washington here. But if it's Haskins, I think the Seahawks just take it because the defense they can run to their blue in the face.
It will
And it
also
won't
be-
matter because they're just not going to convert and get it done on offense. Even though it's not a great Seahawks defense, it'll be a worse Washington offense.
But Washington will be fired up. You know, they can tie their record 7-7.
It would be an amazing. I mean, this is coming from a Giants fan. It would be a really cool thing to see Alex Smith come in and take this team to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Given the start they had, given his just everything, that would be really cool to see. So, I mean, if the Giants aren't going to make it, then I want Washington to come on top of this.
Yeah, I think I want Washington to come on top of it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Definitely.
from that division,
Definitely.
as not a Giants fan, but
I wish there was Gibson. Obviously dealing with that bad turf toe.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
a bit up in the air, and I think they do need him for this team to sort of be able to follow that mould. Game manager, quarterback, explosive running back, quality defense.
Good defense,
We've
run
seen
the
it,
ball,
like,
and a quarterback who can convert on the occasional crucial third, which
age-old
is
recipe.
their game plan.
yeah, it's a good point to raise actually, that one.
So there's two big ifs for this Washington offense.
So that may be a game time decision or a Sunday
Yeah.
morning decision for the spread. I
100%.
think on that one, definitely. Good point, well raised. Right, we've got a 9:05 kickoff that sees the Jets go
Keep it
in to
moving.
face the Rams. Very mean defense for the
I'd be
Rams.
terrified if I was lining up behind that Jets
Mm.
O-line. Just Aaron Donald
Yeah.
staring me down like a bull staring down a matador.
Donald's
Be
just like, my mono's
horrible.
back.
Yeah.
Something's
Check out.
COVID, get me
COVID.
out.
I mean, the spread's a minus 16.5, but you'd back McVay.
16 or 60, like where are we at
Yeah,
with these games?
you'd back McVay to do the job and overturn that quite
Jets
comfortably.
are terrible.
I think
the
they
Rams are
will,
good.
but I'm not betting on it because it's too high.
do it.
It's just not. For me, it's just not worth it. I don't think.
Yeah.
In this one, I think they will. And I mean, we saw the Seahawks do it, but we've also seen a few times the Jets be just randomly like. You can't put competitive and the Jets in the same sentence, but like
they've been
they've been-
randomly very bad rather than randomly appalling.
And they beat the spread.
yeah,
But
And
that's
they
only
cover.
because the spread
randomly
is set high.
annoying, just
Yeah.
annoying in games. I've just hung around and it's like, nah, just
Go away.
come
Just
on,
get out. Just
quit.
get out.
Don't even be a team.
Can we just bring like I don't know, like Clemson? Can they just
Yeah.
play in that division instead or something? Like, just get rid of the
Yeah.
Jets.
Yeah, literally anyone.
Yeah.
But the
Anyone,
Jets, I think,
yeah.
yeah. But so, yeah, I don't think there's much more.
Yeah, Jets going to lose. Moving on.
Let's move it on and let's talk about the Eagles going to face the Arizona Cardinals. Jalen Hurts got a win. His first start last
Big
week.
boy performance from Jalen Hurts.
God, you'd love to see that. If he starts earlier, do we reckon that changes the Eagles' record at all?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so. I don't know. I think it was sort of that test of him being put out there against one of the toughest defenses in the league. I felt from a bit beforehand, before the game, I was like, this could be quite ugly and almost put like a pretty bad stamp on his career early on.
Yeah.
Or, and I sort of said, it's either that NFL, meet Jalen Hurts, you're going to be dealing with him for a while, or Jalen Hurts, welcome to the NFL
Yeah.
sort of thing. And I mean, he gave a
Yeah,
great
he had a
showing.
great game.
I mean, his leg, he looked incredible the way he was moving, running the ball between him and Sanders. It's like a completely new offense, and I think gives him something very different. And I think it's going to be an interesting talking point moving forward through the offseason, what the Eagles do. I think you're going to start to see a slight bit of a Taysom Hill, Drew Brees scenario. I think there is going to be times where they'll split reps in games, and they're going to use Hurts because I think he is a better version of Taysom Hill potentially.
Yeah.
Arm-wise, he's better, and he looked as good physically. I think in this game, I mean, they just beat the Saints with that recipe, and the Saints are better than the Cardinals. So I'm actually taking the Eagles to win this.
Yeah, I actually agree with Matt. I think the Eagles will. I think the Eagles will win this.
You sound so
What?
pained
Yeah,
every
you
time
really
you say
I,
do.
that.
didn't mean it like that.
Every
I
time.
have to agree with
What?
Matt again.
Yeah.
Oh, can he say
God,
something
he
else?
just keeps saying things that I agree with.
God.
The thing I find really interesting about this Carson Wentz Jalen Hurts situation is if Jalen Hurts comes out and because they've said he's going to start the rest of the season, so forget about what the Eagles get to see in him. The rest of the league are going to get to see something. You've invested a second-round pick in this guy, which, I mean, in my opinion, that was maybe even a little bit higher than I thought he should have gone in the draft. I don't necessarily.
It was a weird one for sure.
Yeah.
Or maybe
now
not.
they obviously saw something, and I'm not. I don't want to say one way or the other on him yet because I've seen one game from him, and the number of players that we see come out and have one great game and turn that into a great career, or other players that have one great game and then do nothing. So I'm not going to be the one to say yes, he's a hit, yes, he's a miss. But I mean, if he comes out and he plays competently for the next 3 weeks, right? They win out. Who knows? Maybe they make the playoffs and he gets a playoff game.
Still can.
They definitely still
on the
can.
cards.
There will be teams who go, we want that guy. Because there will be teams that need a quarterback and they think, right, we can trade a second-round pick. We can get a young guy on a rookie deal. The question is,
there's no way he'll go that. If he looks good in these 4 games, I can't see the Eagles saying
But they can't move on from Wentz, right? So they can't move on from Wentz next year. They've already said they're not going to
move on from anyone.
Yeah, he's on a. You said he's on a rookie deal. Why move on from him?
Yeah.
But my point is, if you get offered a second-round pick for a guy that you know is not going to start for at least 2 years, you're not making the most of his rookie deal at all because you don't have a fifth-year option. So if you want him to be the guy, you will get maximum 1 year starting from him, maximum, before you have to pay him.
I see what you're saying financially.
I don't know.
And you can't ride Wentz on the bench. You like if they run with Wentz next year, he has to be their starter because of the amount of money you're paying him. You cannot have someone on your roster taking up that amount of money and not play them.
Technically, you can.
Yeah.
No, but
I mean, technically
you can.
Technically, you can.
You can't, if you know what I mean.
I think it's
if
more
you want to win,
shouldn't, is what you're saying.
If someone, I would not surprise me is if someone comes along and they offer for one of those players, I will be interested to see if they are both on the roster come next year's trade deadline.
I think trade deadline's
if
a
Hurts
different
plays
conversation.
well for the next 4
that's
weeks.
the big if.
If Hurts plays well, there will be people in that conversation because, in my opinion, the whole point of having a rookie quarterback who on that deal, the whole point of that, unless you do just want a career backup, but if there's a guy that you think can be your starting quarterback, you have to play him while he's on a rookie deal, especially with the salary cap going down, because you need to put pieces around him. The second you pay your quarterback, we see this with almost every team other than the Chiefs, the second you pay your quarterback, the rest of the team suffers. The Rams, they pay Goff, the O-line falls to pieces because they can't afford to pay the O-line. Like this happens to a lot of teams. Like the Seahawks, you pay Russ and you can't afford to put all the other things around him, which really does affect the rest of the team. And on a team like the Eagles, where, I mean, the quarterback's shown that he's not that great. I mean, the Eagles are one of the biggest reasons. You've paid your guy, and now you can't afford to put things around him. I don't think this team is, even if they're 100% healthy this year, I don't think this is a team that goes 13-3. I think there may be a 9-7 team.
Who knows? We'll never know.
Well, we might at some point.
Who knows? Maybe if they ever stay healthy.
You never know. Yeah, I think that's the big if, innit?
I don't know.
That's the game, though.
Yeah, with this game, I think they do take it. I think the Cardinals are a weird team. They're not quite there yet. They've shown really good moments, but I think it's just been times where defense hasn't quite stepped up and the offense hasn't fired on all cylinders, and they need everyone on that offense to be playing elite level, just outrageous football. Mainly Kyler Murray for them to do it. And I think Kyler Murray, he's still young. It's his second year.
Yeah.
He's shown, I think, enough this year to be like, okay, they've definitely got their guy there. But it's just that team is not... And they've done better than I thought they would by a mile. I thought maybe if you'd have told me they've gone 7-6, I think we're talking about next year.
Yeah.
At the start of this year. So I think they've shown enough. But I think this is a game where they will falter. They're not exactly coming off a big win. And beating the Giants is not a massive result for them. Sort of, that's a team I think a lot of teams just sort of want to move past. And I think the Eagles come back, and with Jalen Hurts, if he does what he did against the Saints, I think he'll do it better against the Cardinals because they're just a worse defensive team.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a very exciting matchup to watch of who can just run more touchdowns.
Yeah.
Which
who can have better
quarterback
legs.
can come out on top.
Exactly. A little bit of storyline behind it, where I think Hurts just chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, it's certainly a game I'm looking forward to watching. That's for sure. Definitely when you compare it to a few games we've mentioned previously as well.
Yeah.
Right, we have a 25-9 kickoff between the Chiefs and the Saints. It's a blockbuster.
Yeah.
of a fixture. Now, who do we fancy taking the win?
Chiefs.
Yeah, it's got to be Chiefs, isn't it?
Yeah.
Saints coming off a weird loss to the Eagles team where, who knows, maybe they just didn't have enough prep and couldn't really deal with Jalen Hurts because they didn't know what they were going up against. There is an argument for that. But, I mean, this Chiefs team is just electric. If you can turn the ball over 4 times and still put up 30 points and get the win, then maybe that's just more about the Dolphins. We've already covered it, but that still says a lot about the Chiefs on offense and Mahomes' mentality of just like, all right, I don't care. Next play, next man up sort of thing, next play up. And the Saints have a quarterback as well. Is it going to be Breeze? Is it going to be Taysom Hill? Taysom Hill has not shown enough, I think, to really convince anyone of him being the permanent solution in that job. I think suddenly, if you're the Saints, you didn't feel like you had enough in Jameis, so you went with Hill. Hill now hasn't shown you enough. Breeze is on his way out. They're in a really weird spot here.
Very weird spot.
And I think what you could see is this defense trying to overcompensate, knowing that they're in a window, but they're coming out of it potentially very soon if they can't get this figured out at quarterback. So I think the defense, you're going to maybe see them try and overplay, make silly mistakes because of it, and then maybe just a little bit of issues. I mean, Sean Payton's going to have his team well coached, we already know that, but there's only so much coaching you can do to affect how your players think on the field. And if that defense keeps looking like we're doing as much as we can of our job, and this offense just isn't living up to the other end of the bargain.
The thing this offense just doesn't have is big play capability, really.
It's just weird for Alvin Kamara.
I was gonna say,
Alvin Kamara, in fairness, like he is the kind of player that in the backfield could break away at any point, right? But that's a once every couple games type thing, and we saw last week where they really struggled to get that run game going. They struggled to involve Kamara. When they struggle to involve Kamara, especially without Breeze on the field, the offense kind of falls apart. And Michael Thomas, for as brilliant of a receiver as he is, he's not a huge play guy. He's a volume guy. You can chuck it to him 8 times on a drive and he'll come down with it eight times and it will be 8 first downs. And you can play this slow, methodical football, which against so many teams in the league works. And that's all very well and good. But the Kansas City Chiefs are just so explosive on offense and they can do so many things so well that I think in order, the teams that are going to have a chance of beating Kansas City Chiefs are the teams that have that big play potential. The Raiders, where you've got the big play out of the thing that can, when you're 2 scores back because you've been a bit sloppy on defense, that can just jump you back into it and kind of kickstart you back again. And I think the Saints are great defense, and their way to win games is play great defense, establish the run game, and not have to lean on your quarterback making big plays with their arms, because they've got guys that are either can't zip the ball down the field anymore because they're older, or aren't quite as comfortable doing that, and they're just a bit young and haven't proven themselves to be able to do that. So against the Chiefs, not sure they've got a shot, just because I don't think they've got that big play kind of, when I don't think that the plays aren't going to be drawn up when they need a 50-yard bomb to get them back into a game.
But they might be able to establish a run still. Chiefs' run defense isn't great.
Maybe, but I think that kind of established the run. It's too methodical. This is a Chiefs team that very easily they might come out, score a touchdown, and then you come out and you slow methodical drive, and then Chief gets the ball back, boom, another touchdown, and then you're going back, slow methodical drive, and suddenly your offense has been on the field for ages with a lot of plays, and their offense is much healthier, much fresher. I worry about that.
All taking the Chiefs then, I think, on this one?
Yeah.
All taking the Chiefs.
-3.5.
Yeah. It's definitely doable. Glad we all agreed on that one. It's nice. Very nice.
Agreement.
Wholesome.
Cool. I'd love to see it. Right, we have a Monday morning matchup, or a Sunday night. 1:20 in the morning on Monday.
Well, not working on Monday, so might even watch the game.
And there you go. You see the Browns.
I might sit this one out if I were you, bud.
Yeah, the Browns going to play your Giants, mate. It's
not going to be pretty for me, I don't think.
I mean, do you reckon your Giants could pressure Baker to force the issue? Do you reckon you got it in you?
No, I mean, no. The way to beat. I mean,
I love that reaction.
I say this.
I really want to say yes, but I
say this every week. The way to beat this Browns team is to put as much pressure on Baker as humanly possible. But I mean, Baker's looked good. Like, Baker looked good last week. He's been looking good in general. The run game, I think he has.
I like it.
Baker is, for me, he's not an amazing quarterback. He's not the kind of guy, like, he's not Lamar Jackson, who Lamar
No, he's
Jackson can be average all season and not look amazing, but you always know that he's got that couple of drives in and he could do something, and Baker is not that. And he's not Patrick Mahomes. But he's also not Gardner Minshew. He's also not... Who else is terrible? Not terrible. He's not... Daniel Jones.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow, hello.
Yeah.
Oh.
Cool, I was trying to get
I assumed you go Trubisky as you hate him.
Trubisky. Yeah. He's not Trubisky. I mean, we've got to be realistic with Daniel Jones at this point. He fumbles the ball like a madman. He turns the ball over, and at the end of the day, if you turn the ball over that much, it doesn't matter how many deep bombs you can throw. You're not going to win games.
You don't want what's becoming a mobile quarterback to be bad at ball security when it comes to fumbling. That is not a good combination.
But Baker Mayfield is a guy that Baker Mayfield, if you can just go, right, this is what he's good at. We play to his strengths. We'll establish the run. They've got a great defense. They know how to win their games, and against all of the good teams they've played this year, they've been in all of their games pretty much. I mean, apart from week 1 where they really looked a bit outdone by the Ravens, they've been in all of their games. They've got a great record. Baker's got better as the season's gone on. The run game's got better as the season's gone on. The defense has got better as the season's gone on. I think this is a really good team.
It is.
And I think this is one of the few teams that might have a genuine shot in the playoffs against Kansas City, because I think that defense is mean, and I think they are good enough on offense. They can score enough points. I don't know why. I've just got a feeling about the Browns.
That's a bold take.
I think
very bold take.
3 of their losses in division.
Yeah, I think the fact since OBJ went out, Baker has started to look better again. I think it's almost taken away. I feel like there was a point where he'd look up if he was going to be throwing the ball. All he would see is just a massive circle around OBJ, and he's got blinders on for him.
Yeah.
I think take him out, he's really dealing that ball about and has looked better and sort of done what he needs to. I just worry that in the playoffs, it's the same where I have the Steelers. There's just such like with the Steelers, they can't run the ball, so just pressure and get the picks off Big Ben. That's how they're going to be.
Yeah.
With Baker, everyone knows what it is. Just pressure him. Just sacrifice getting burnt a couple times for the majority of the game, have him panicking and making bad decisions, because for each big play, it's probably also going to be a pick.
Yeah, you're probably right.
So I don't know, that's just my one worry for them, is it seems those one-dimensional teams, and it's sort of like, for the Titans, that is their potential issue, being one-dimensional at points. All these one-dimensional teams, you get caught out in the playoffs. It's rare that without a team like the Chiefs, with Patrick Mahomes, where he is just on another level, that although you kind of know what you've got to do, you can't stop it. A lot of these other ones, people have figured out the way to. That's my issue with the Browns moving forward. I think in this game, they get through it fine. They get a win, get themselves to 10-4. Great position for them to be in. I think as well, it's sort of similar to the Bucs turnaround for the Browns as well. Both suddenly at that point of, isn't this nice?
Yeah.
Competitive football around Christmas time.
It's been a long time coming.
Exactly.
Can't wait to see them lock up a playoff spot. I cannot wait to see them lock up a playoff spot.
Why you got to be like that?
Because
can't your Giants just beat them this game?
Look,
flip the table.
I'd love for my Giants to beat them. I really would, but I got to be realistic with where the Giants are at. I think at this point we could do with a higher draft pick.
You changed your tune off to one loss, because last week you were seeing playoff like.
Could still happen.
I was getting ahead of myself last week.
Yep.
But
maybe.
You're very either end of the spectrum on players and teams, aren't you? They're either terrible or it's happening.
And then 1 week later,
and it just.
We need to sort our offense out. We need to sort our offense out. Maybe things will be better when we get Saquon back.
Need to get need some help on that O-line.
Yeah, like to be fair to Daniel Jones, some of those fumbles he made last week, fair enough. Like he was getting sacked, and there was nobody. Yeah. Like literally, it was like, here you go, here's our quarterback. Just hit him as hard as you can from his blind side. Go for it. So.
What's the Eagle syndrome?
Yeah.
Revolving door.
Yeah. So I mean, I do feel a bit bad for Daniel Jones, but at the end of the day, you got to play better when the playoffs are on the line.
And with that record, it's crazy
that division shouldn't get a playoff spot.
Nah, just bin him off.
Unless it's Washington with Smith healthy.
Yeah, and they might have a positive record.
Exactly.
They might be,
that's the one team I can see coming out of this thinking, okay, you can see why they're in the playoffs and not looking dreadful when they get there.
9-7, if they manage to get it, it's not a bad record to have. So fair play to them if that happens.
They've turned it around well. I'll give them that.
Yeah, definitely.
Well.
But right, let's move on to the last game of the week. Monday Night Football between the Steelers and the Bengals.
Oh, right.
I
need to talk about the Steelers.
Right. Do you want to give him a timer? Another timer?
Yeah, should we timer him again? I think.
2
Right, I
minutes.
think it's
We'll give
needed.
him 2 minutes.
Yeah, we'll give him the 2 minutes.
Set that
Steelers.
timer up. Not starting yet.
Hold on.
Steelers lost to the Bills last week. Bengals lost to the Cowboys. Steelers at -12 on the spread for this game. Sam, shoot.
Right. The Steelers. Defense, great. Best defense in the league.
Incredible.
Really struggled. They've not looked as dominant the last couple of weeks because they're missing pieces, right? But they're still probably the best defense in the league. But because of those missing pieces, it's clearly a lot easier for offensive coordinators to game plan against that. They're effectively relying on players like TJ Watt just being an absolute menace every week. TJ Watt, I mean, didn't play badly last week, but he had a pretty silent game. Wasn't up in your face. I think for this Steelers team to win games now going forward, that defense has to play ridiculously. They have no run game whatsoever. They have to sort that out. But it was shown this week, Big Ben, his arm, if you go back and you watch, I went back and watched, I think 2 days ago, I watched highlights from all of their games this season, just a couple of deeper throws.
A lot of time.
His arm has got progressively weaker as the season's gone on.
Yeah.
Them not having that deep threat is a nightmare for them, because when you don't have a run game and your quarterback can't throw for deeper than 10 yards, defense becomes easy. You basically go, right, defend the sticks and we're playing a 10-yard field because they're not going to run the ball and they can't throw it behind us. So we're just playing a 10-yard field. Easy. Brilliant. They need to sort that out. Now, whether you change up your scheme, you need to. Your pass catchers are all dropping balls left, right, and centre, so they need to fix that. And the scheme needs to change, whatever they're doing, because they are not comfortable on offense right now. And it's painful for me to watch this because their defense is so good, and they've got the personnel to scheme around this. To just get, this is your last year probably with Big Ben. Do something with your scheme to fix that and do it in the next 3 weeks, because you're going to have a high seed for the playoffs.
I think it's happened a bit later on in the season, but in our pre-season previews, this is sort of what I was getting out of.
Yeah, that was your main thing, wasn't it?
That was my main concern. I mean, I was more looking at the side of it if Big Ben was injured and Connor gets injured again. But it's just more been a case of Connor can't run the ball. It seems he had that one great year, and maybe that's his career year. And Big Ben deteriorating, not getting injured, stayed out on the field, but just kind of slumping off, and it's going.
He's 38. He's 38. He's coming off an injury to his throwing shoulder.
It's going to happen.
Yeah. Arms weakening, and the thing is it's really got very visible in the last 3 weeks.
Bad time to do it.
Is it a little bit, though, of when the whole time they're just winning, no one's really looking for it? You're seeing the faults. You can see, okay, they're not running the ball well, but they're just getting the wins. The second they stop getting the wins is when suddenly the microscope's on, everyone's going, what's changed? And people pick up on it. I think this is something that if you properly track it, I think, although it might have really be heightened now, I think I reckon it's
maybe
been a
the
more
issue is in
gradual
those games
decline.
where they were winning, there were less requirements for him to throw the ball deep, right? So when you're winning the game and you're up and you're throwing 10-yard slants and you're just marching down the field, you can play like that and you're going to win. I think there was one throw this week where it was a heave up to the end zone, and the ball fell so short of the end zone, it wasn't even a Hail Mary. Like, the ball just didn't get there because he didn't have the zip on it. And the unfortunate thing for the Steelers is they don't have a backup.
Nope.
They don't have a backup. Their backup situation is maybe the worst in the league. I mean, Mason Rudolph is not a quarterback in the NFL.
We've seen what the Steelers look like with Rudolph out there.
Very poor.
Yeah, and it is, for me, a shame because they are, in my opinion, if Big Ben just had that arm, they are that close to being the best team in the NFL. But, they really are, if they could just get either the run... Because if they get the run game going, if they can find a way to get the run game going, that will compensate for the fact that Big Ben doesn't have to throw it deep. If Big Ben could throw it deep, that would compensate and it would open up the run game a bit more. And it wouldn't surprise me if the thing that they saw when Chase Young came out a couple of weeks ago, the thing that they saw wasn't the fact that, hang on, we don't need to cover the deep ball.
Yeah.
Like, Chase Claypool's not going to burn us for 80 yards in the air touchdown. He might burn us on a 20-yard slant that he takes to the house, but we don't need to stick a deep man back there. We can bring him up and we play a 10-yard field. And I think that might be what it is. And the Steelers have to fix that because they're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to have a high seed. And I'd quite like to see them succeed.
I wouldn't. but
I don't think they do.
I don't want to say.
I think it's
Because
I've
I'd
said
like
it-
to see Ben go out on top.
I've said it
Yeah.
a few times. Like when you get figured out and it go into the playoffs, it becomes very easy for teams to scheme around it because you're against good teams that
Yeah.
know what they're doing and they're there for a reason. So I think this is really wearing for the Steelers. We talk about getting hot at the right time. They are going cold at the right time.
Yeah.
And the problem is, I think with that receiver group, on their day, they have covered for Big Ben. I reckon if you properly watched it back of just that big playability, they're some great athletes, but they're also, I think, they're confidence based. You look at sort of the way that you see a lot of it, there's a lot made of it. Sort of what was it, Juju sort of filming himself dancing on the Bills
that was a
logo,
mistake.
all this sort of stuff. But you've seen it throughout the year. No
I
one's
don't
had
care
an
about
issue with a lot of these videos throughout the year. And it seemed like just a really the receiver group that's enjoying itself, feels confidence, just like on top of the world. It started going wrong, dropping catches, a lot of attention on them suddenly, and I think maybe they're quite confidence based. Like they need that momentum to them because I think another couple games of Juju not looking incredible, and people start to say everything we've said before of is he really enough to be the number one there, all that sort of stuff, which I think he's shown this season he is, but it doesn't mean the media won't say it. Yeah. And especially when you were tipped to be 16-0, this is going to be a Big Ben, absolutely smashes it, monster defense, go out on top. That all starts to fall away. And let's say they're going to be in the playoffs. Let's say they scrape through that first game.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you're saying, well, hang on, they only just got through. Now they're against an even better team.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be almost a bit of heartbreak for Steelers fans. They've had a whole season of like, here we go. This is going to be incredible. Yeah. And it's just they're going to go cold at the wrong point because they've been figured out. It's like the Ravens.
Yeah. And
you were there. Yeah.
And the Tampa Bay Lightning as well.
Yeah.
Cheers for that one.
I thought I should bring it up.
Recovered the next year, though.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe next year, Steelers will follow the same blueprint. You never know. But to talk about confidence, though, this is a good game for them to get confidence back against the Bengals, who are down and out, can't make playoffs, can't do anything.
You can be given the recipe, but I think if you can't cook, you're not going to make it happen. No.
Yeah, this sounds like
kind of makes sense. I feel like
you
know what I mean.
I think getting really confident after beating this Bengals team is
worrying.
Come on, man.
Yeah, maybe not confidence, but at least
it's a Bengals team that it just hinges. The one player that their season was hinging on went out injured. Joe Burrow. It's such a shame from a football perspective because he could have had like one of the all-time rookie quarterback seasons. I think since he's gone out, it's really shown just how much he did for that team and just how important he was. So
Geno Atkins as well now came out today, pretty much done. I can't remember the exact specifics of the injury, but having surgery, so his season's done. He'll be back next year, but I think that really shows you, as well, the Bengals' point of view, we already know they've got nothing to play for, but when you start seeing that happening, them saying to players, get an extra month on your recovery, this year's done, sort of thing.
Go home.
You know where you're at. Like, no one's going to be out there thinking, apart the fringe guys. Yeah. The fringe guys are like, right, I'm here to win a spot, make sure I'm there in camp next year.
Yeah.
The big guys, the guys who know they're secure, they get already paid the money, they've got the guarantees or whatever, they're sort of saying, right, so
I'll see you in
so what we doing for Christmas? What's the planning? Yeah, they're kind of like most people
feet up
for Christmas. They're sort of
mojito ordered already.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we all agree Steelers to take this game without a shadow of a doubt.
I'd bet money line on it. I think
spread minus 12. Yeah, it's a bit long, but
I'm not trusting it just because I think they'll get through on the fact that the Bengals won't be able to put up points. But I think we've said it that there isn't a run game, and I think how much as the Bengals aren't exactly going to put up much of a fuss. I feel like just the Steelers don't have it there at the moment. And Big Ben, he'll get enough done, but I think they're going to want to try and just sort of get him through this game in a way, kind of sort of hopefully try and get him to build a bit of confidence. But the way to do that is not try and make him make big throws and show him, no, I can do it.
Yeah,
it's just I feel like they're not going to try and drive the score up. They just want to kind of right the ship, get out of here with a win. It's not unheard of for a team to completely throw it away in a trap game.
12-2 will this clinch? This won't clinch the division, will it?
Yeah, it will.
I think it would. Yeah,
it would.
Because the Browns.
I'm pretty sure.
The Browns.
I think they're Steelers got the sweep on the
Browns at 9-5 or 9-4. Browns are at 9-4, aren't they?
9-4. Yeah, the Steelers can clinch it.
Yeah, no, the Steelers play the Browns one.
So that if the Steelers win
this game,
and the Browns have to win to keep it alive. If the Browns lose and the Steelers win, then it's lost.
Yeah. Either way, I think Steelers take this division. I think it's.
Yes,
I think
they should do.
Yeah.
Something's gone. I mean, something continues to go very wrong for them if they don't.
That'll be a really interesting game before playoffs, though, because the Cleveland Browns do play the Steelers again. This time, though, it is in Cleveland, so they will have some of the fans there. I mean, for whatever that makes of a difference, but The Cleveland Browns are a really proper team, and at this point of the year, they do have to be considered a good team. So if the Steelers go out and they get beaten by the Browns, then there's going to be some real concerns of, right, you probably can't beat anyone in the playoffs.
My thing for that game, pressure Baker. Normally doesn't look good against a team that is currently setting records for most consistently pressuring quarterbacks in consecutive games.
Yes, that is true.
Let's be like, if you were to
they're
pick
missing
a team,
Dupree though. They are really missing Dupree,
but they're still getting the pressure on. And I think if you're going to pick a team to get pressure on the quarterback and be like, who do you want to pick to get that done? Steelers going to be quite far up that list.
Yeah,
but we'll plenty more time to talk
I was
about
say
that
we'll come on to that
happens.
one and the blueprints about beating these teams as well. We'll come on to that at a later date, but not the most exciting Monday night football matchup, I think.
Well, it could be incredibly exciting.
I don't know. I'm not
Trap
excited
game,
for this one.
But I doubt it.
Trap game potentially, but I mean, it's not one that I'm
predicting.
gutted that I'm missing because I'll be asleep. So
yeah,
one of those situations. I think. But, boys, that is it. Covered every single game.
Another week.
Exciting time of year, isn't it?
We are getting to playoffs. We're getting to that meaty time of the season. I can't wait for that first playoff week.
I can't wait. It's coming. It's round the corner. It is round the corner. But unless you boys have any further points to raise, unfortunately, one day one of you is going to bring up a massive point that we've forgotten.
Well, actually.
But yeah, unfortunately, all we've got time for today. So be sure check out the YouTube. Go like, comment, and subscribe. Also, check us out on Twitter and Instagram. At the Brit Iron.
We are there.
Very good platforms to communicate with us on. I think we can
get
all
involved
agree.
in the chat, join the community, and over on YouTube, make sure you whack that little bell.
Yep, I forgot that once again. That's on me.
Give it a ding.
Turn the notification bell on because it will let you know when we are posting out our episodes.
Means you won't miss or forget one, like James with notifying us about the bell. The notification bell does it for our videos for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, that happened.
You did that on purpose, just show
it's just going to down their throats, down the listeners' throats. They know they have to do it now. But yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.